All right, let's get right into it. When you hear Iraq, you probably think of the Fertile Crescent, right? The cradle of civilization. But wow, things are changing. A much, much tougher reality is setting in. We're going to explore how this nation, once famous for its rich soil, is literally turning to dust.
So let's kick things off with a pretty shocking number: 39%. And get this, that's the minimum slice of rock that's already being hit by desertification. We're talking about almost 2/5 of the whole country. Just think about that.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what exactly is desertification? Well, it's basically when good, fertile land just degrades and becomes desert. And it's not like the Sahara is just creeping north. This is something different. It's a change that's being pushed by things like drought, cutting down trees, and frankly, the way we've been farming.
And the speed at which this is happening, it's just mind-blowing. Every single year, Iraq loses about 100 square kilometers of good, farmable land. It just vanishes into the desert. To give you a picture of what that means, imagine the entire island of Manhattan. Now imagine it disappearing. That's what's happening every single. But big numbers like that, they don't really tell the whole story, do they? Behind these stats, there's a huge human cost. We're talking about a quiet exodus of people, a migration that's completely changing the face of the country. All right, check this out. It's a really powerful example from the reports. Picture a bustling village, okay? 5,000 people. Their whole lives are built around the land. And now, that same village has just 80 people left. 80. That's more than a 98% drop. People are literally having to walk away from their homes, from their history, because the very ground they rely on is disappearing from under their feet.
So why leave? Why would an entire community just pack up and go? Well, this quote really nails it. This crisis has destroyed agricultural livelihoods. It's that simple and that devastating. This whole process just rips the foundation out from under rural life. Once you can't farm, you can't make a living. You have no choice but to move.
So what's behind this massive environmental disaster? Well, it's not just one thing you can point a finger at. It's more like a perfect storm of problems, all hitting at the same time and making each other worse.
Let's break down the main culprits here. First up, you've got climate change doing its thing. We're talking serious drought and hotter temperatures, which means way less water to go around. Then you add in things like chopping down too many trees and letting animals overgraze the land. That basically strips the soil of its armor. But maybe the biggest hit of all, the historic marshes of Iraq. 90% of them have dried up. And these marshes used to be this huge natural shield against dust. This next part is, wow, it really puts things into perspective. It shows just how vulnerable the country is when it comes to water. A massive 80% of Iraq's water, it doesn't even come from inside Iraq. It flows in from other countries. You can imagine, right? That makes their access to the most basic resource for life super, super shaky. And yeah, it's a huge source of tension in the region. And then there's this. This just shows you the insane scale of the deforestation problem. Only 2% of Iraq's forests are left. Let that sink in. 98%. Gone. Think of trees as these giant anchors holding the topsoil down. When you get rid of almost all of them, it's like you've unpinned the earth itself, just leaving it bare and totally exposed to the wind. So you put all that together, and what do you get? Well, you get one of the most visible and dangerous consequences. These huge, choking dust storms that are becoming a regular, terrifying part of life there. What we're looking at here is a really scary, vicious cycle. It just feeds on itself. So step 1, you lose the plants and the marshes. And suddenly you have all this exposed soil. Step 2, the wind comes along and has a field day, just scooping up all that loose, dry dirt. Step 3, boom, you get these massive dust storms. And here's the kicker, the really vicious part. Those storms then go on to damage even more land, making it even easier for the next storm to form. It just keeps getting worse. When you add it all up, the lack of water, the ruined land, that nonstop cycle of dust storms, it all leads to one pretty bleak conclusion. Iraq is now one of the most vulnerable countries on the entire planet when it comes to climate change. So, where do we go from here? What does the future look like? Look, the challenge is enormous. There's no sugarcoating it. But the sources we've looked at do say there is a path forward. It's going to be incredibly tough, but it's a task that is absolutely necessary. And the stakes? They couldn't be any higher. Right now, the reality is 40 million dunams of land, already gone, turned to desert. But the future risk is what's really scary. Almost 55% of the country is still at risk. So whatever happens next is beyond critical.
So, what's the game plan? What can actually be done? Well, the experts are pointing to a few key things. First, they've got to bring in smarter ways of farming that actually protect the soil. Then they need to get serious about efficient irrigation so every last drop of water counts. And finally, a huge countrywide push to plant trees again, to re-anchor that soil and build up natural walls against the wind. But here's the thing you have to understand. There's no magic wand here, no quick fix. All the reports are clear on this. Turning this around is possible, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We're talking about decades of hard, sustained work just to start seeing a real change. And all of this really leaves us with one big final question, doesn't it? It's a question that affects the future of millions of people, of a legendary landscape, of an entire nation. After everything that's been lost, and with such a massive challenge ahead, can the dust of a rock ever truly be settled?